Hello, everyone. Welcome in, you all. We are so excited to have you all here. Please say hello in the chat. Let us know where you're joining from. Let us know what you do. And we are actually about to go ahead and get started. I do want to shout out some folks that are here. I have people in here from Texas, Chicago, Salt Lake City, Kansas, Iowa, Tennessee, New York, Oregon. Welcome, Salam. Yes, and what do you all do? Who's in HR, culture, L&D? Just kind of want to get a feel for who is here in the Zoom room with us today. Culture. All right, thanks, Jessica. L&D, manager of HR, HR culture, fractional HR. All right, well, we're not going to delay this conversation any further. Today, we are talking about making great managers and HR's role in developing growth-ready people leaders. Studies do show that people don't leave bad jobs, they leave bad managers. There are also studies that show that we spend more time, if not just as much time, with our managers that we do with our partners, that we do with our family. And we want to make sure that you all leave today having some really, really great resources and practical strategies you can take back to your role and helping to either create or improve your people leaders. How many of us have seen where people get promoted because maybe they're just really good at what they do? They don't know how to lead. They've never managed a team before. And this is why at Perfecta, I'm gonna say me, I strongly believe in people manager training. And a lot of our partners at Perfecta are always asking us, well, like, how should we do it? But how do we reinforce the behaviors? How do we tie the behaviors to our culture? Right. And so we're going to be getting into all of that today. If you're just joining in, share where you're joining from, share what you do. And one more question before I introduce our phenomenal panelists. Um, if this is your first time coming to a Perfecta webinar, say first. If it's your second, say second. If it's your third, say third. If it's fourth plus, say just I lost count. I know I've seen a lot of familiar names in here, and so I know some of y'all have been here for maybe everyone we've had in the last several months. And I'm so grateful that we got some first timers. I grew up in the South, so growing up in a Southern Baptist church, all the visitors had to stand up and say where they were joining from. So we're doing that right here in the Zoom room. At least you don't have to say where, all the things. But thank you all so much for being here. And I hope that you come back. We got some third timers in here. Shay, girl, I know you've been here. One day, you know what? You gotta be on the panel one of these days. But you've been here for
I'm
every
here
single
for it.
one.
Invite me. I'm ready, y'all. This is a good time. You're going to learn so much. And more than anything, it's an amazing community. So thank you, Letitia, and all the young ladies on the panel today for all the greatness I know we're going to get.
Thank you, thank you. And I love what you said too about the community. This is not just to hear us speak. We're not here to talk at you. We're here to talk with you. We're here to be in conversation with you. And we hope that you all will connect with each other in the chat. So before I delay this conversation any further, I want to welcome our panelist, Angela, who is someone that I am just so grateful to be in our digital community with. We definitely have to hang out in person one of these days. And I've admired the work that she's done at her company and in her role for a very, very long time. So honored to have her here. We have Erica Coffee here. Erica, I heard her speak at Lativerse. Hopefully I'm saying that right, Erica. Lativerse in San Francisco, literally just about a year ago. If you're not familiar with Lativerse, it's a big HR conference put on by Lattice, the HR platform. She was on the panel, and I was like, I love her. And we have been able to just continue to stay in touch since. And then last but not least, Alicia Logan, who is a phenomenal HR expert. She is our resident HR expert here at Perfecta. And I just always love being in conversation with her, whether it's on a Zoom or in Slack, where we are just talking about and nerding out over HR and culture. with that being said, I would love for our panelists to just maybe give us like a, 30-second spiel about who you are, what you're excited about as it relates to today's conversation. So I'm just going to follow the order on the screen, and I'll start with Angela, and then we'll move to Erica and then Alicia.
Thank you so much, Letitia. And hello, everyone. I love that intro. Thank you, Letitia. My name is Angela Briggs Page, and I'm the Chief People Officer at Acelero. And I'm also the founder of People Power. And there is one truth I like to help HR leaders and managers understand the value they bring to organizations. And that includes culture. A lot of you said culture in the chat. Culture isn't what you say, it's what you tolerate, reward, and repeat. And nowhere does that show up faster than in how a company treats its managers. So we hand people a team and we call it a promotion, but we rarely call it what it actually is, which is a completely new job that we've never trained them for. So I'm excited about this conversation and I'm excited to dig in real time with you all.
Hi, my name is Erica Coffey. I'm the, what am I? The Director of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging at Khan Academy. I'm also founder and principal consultant at Beneath the Surface Consulting. I find people fascinating. Like people just, we're such interesting humans. And I feel like there's always ways for us to grow and to become better. Sometimes we get in our own way. I handle our L&D. I work with our culture. I'm an internal coach. So everything that has to do with the person, because you make the individual person better, you make the whole org better.
And that comes to me. Good morning, everybody. My name's Alicia. Outside of consulting with Perfeqta, yes, I love nerding out about our conversations, Letitia. Thank you for that intro. I am the founder of Legacy Inspired HR Solutions. I also consult as an HR consultant at Perfeqta. So my expertise really is helping people intertwine their business and people strategy. Oftentimes they run at them parallel, and that's where the problems exist. Is because very much like my partners on the panel said, they don't think about you put someone in this new job, but now what? Like, how do we set people up for success? How do we think past, present, and future all at the same time? I know it sounds a lot, but that's where my brain is always going. So yeah, I'm excited to dig into today's conversation.
At Perfecta, we are all about helping our client partners build cultures that their best people don't want to leave. So what does that look like? We work alongside many times HR culture talent teams to either deliver HR, fractional HR services. We are reviewing policies. We are creating programs specifically related to developing talent. We work alongside HR, and we also provide HR to some of the smaller businesses that maybe don't need a full-time HR person just yet, but they know that they need some support as they continue to grow and scale. All right, so during today's conversation, what we are going to talk about, how to find skill gaps in your people manager so you know where to step in before turnover hits. You want to be able to get in front of having a mass exodus of your best employees, because one thing we know about top talent here at Perfecta, they want to be managed. Well, not managed per se. They want to be developed. They want to be nurtured. They want their growth to be taken seriously. And having a great manager directly relates to that. So not only is having an L&D, a significant L&D program important, it's also important to retain your best talent. We'll also talk about how to align L&D goals. I'm going to say L&D for the sake of conversation, but referring to learning and development, how to align L&D goals with company goals so that leadership training is treated as a business priority. Sometimes in this HR space, our work we don't always get a seat at the table when decisions are being made, and maybe when those budget cuts are happening, HR is one of the first functions to get cut. But what we're going to talk about today is just the business imperative behind the work that we do. And then lastly here, how to build training programs that turn managers into the best of class leaders who then grow with the company and to help you nurture your future leaders. Why are we talking about this? I'm going to go through these super quickly. Managers account for at least 70% of variance in employee engagement scores. So just as you can see here, managers do, again, either reinforce the company culture or they impact it negatively. And that does show up in employee engagement. 40% of employees who left their job said their manager or org could have done something to prevent them from leaving. What does that mean? It sounds like there's some conversations that are not happening. And again, our partners tell us all the time when we're building out L&D programs is our managers don't know how to talk to their team. They don't know how to have these developmental conversations with them. They don't know how to give them feedback, right? And so communication is so important to be trained on as a core competency, giving feedback, having difficult conversations, to be a part of your trainings. Only about 1 in 10, so 10% of people have natural management talent, and when placed in the role, they engage teams, retain top performers, and drive high-performing cultures almost instinctively. I don't think that needs to be explained any further. And then another 2 in 10 people can function at a high level if their company invests in coaching and plans for them. So the stats are the stats. The numbers don't lie. We're going to do a quick poll here. What's the number one barrier to developing people management skills at your org? Is it maybe time? Is it a budget constraint? Maybe there's not a formal program, but you want to create a formal program, or maybe it's something else. Just let us know in the chat. No positions for upward mobility. We got to get into this, Alicia, Erica, and Angela, because even here at Perfecta, we work with a lot of organizations who are maybe small, mid-size, right? And there's not a lot of path for upward mobility. So what does it look like to still develop your people? How do we think about growth in a way that may not be just an upward trajectory? How can we get creative with what that can actually look like? So I really like that you brought that up. We're going to talk about that. Time and constant change, time, people manager resistance, not the people manager resistance, Tammy. That is a first one that I have heard. We got to talk offline about that one. A lot of times I see managers are wanting to get trained, so I would love to talk to you more about that. All right, generally, I see a lack of formal programs and inconsistent philosophies or business goals. Undermine people needs goals rather than working hand in hand. Sometimes the systems, the pressure doesn't always align with the moral expectation of the work and leadership. And then a lot of y'all are saying change. And Shay, you're saying mentorship, but say more about that. When you say mentorship, is it, you know, mentorship is strong, so you don't need training, or you need a formal mentorship? You have a formal mentorship program, or is that how you all go about developing your talent? Just kind of curious about the mentorship piece.
I was speaking to when we were talking about like no upward mobility, like no
Oh,
like real
yes,
chance
yes,
to
yes.
promote. And I'm like, there are so many other ways. Like if you are working for a company that doesn't, because we all can't be the managers, right? So
Hmm.
there are other ways to invest in your people to keep them engaged in your organization. So that is mentorship, that is stretch assignments. It is, it's so many other ways to keep people engaged other than stocking a bench, making sure that people are getting the skills that they need in their current position to be ready for when one does become available. So
Yeah.
people just want to feel as though you are investing in me and my growth, and it doesn't necessarily always mean promoting. It just means investment. So that's what I meant by the mentorship.
Thank you, Shay. I love the way that you define that. Investment. All right, let's go ahead and move forward so we can kick off the panel. I need like some like clapping, like an applause, like sound bite right now. But if y'all can just use a reaction emoji, maybe give us a hand clap, so we can feel that energy. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right. So, first question is for Alicia. What are the most common skill gaps oh, sorry, let me get this right. I don't want to mess up the question here. What are the most common skill gaps you're seeing in people managers right now, and what's causing them?
Honestly, it's around actually talking to their people. So it's not, I mean, typically if they're going to give managers anything, it's the here's the invoice submission dates, here's the like the protocols, what I call it, but they don't help them actually talk to their folks. So like there should be a through line from the time you get an initial like a person's first day, setting that expectation from day one. How do you set those expectations? How do you understand what your employees' goals are? How do you manage consistently but differently? It's kind of like parenting. Like I have two teenagers. I don't parent them the exact same. They're not the exact same kid, but it is consistent, right? So you have to be consistent, but also different to make sure that you're meeting the needs of everyone. Because if you have a super extroverted person, they may need the recognition and all those things. And you may need to learn how to recognize your folks in that way. But then if you have a super introverted person, if you call them out and have this big hoopla at the team huddle, they're now ostracized and they think you hate them, right? So it's understanding the little things that need to happen, but it's understanding that the communication is important. Understanding where their piece of the puzzle lies instead of does it always just go to HR or is there something the manager can do in between? Having the conversations of how to stop something before it escalates to HR. It's not that we don't mind handling it, but we understand that. And I always laugh with Letitia and I say, my goal is if I walk away from an interaction and someone else trusts HR a little bit more than they did yesterday, I feel better about my profession, right? I understand just by experience that oftentimes we are not everyone's favorite person. And so with managers, that's the same. Setting expectations from the beginning, understanding the communications and how to do that, right? If you're a first time manager, you may not understand the different communication styles. You may not understand the different leadership styles and which one you are. You may not understand how to delegate. You went from being the top performer to now being the top performer who manages people. Well, you can't continue to do both, or maybe you're expected to, you shouldn't. And so, how do you delegate that without just dumping? And so, a lot of it is around how you treat, how you'll communicate and treat the people that you're managing, but in more of a pretext, right? So, it's being proactive instead of reactive. A lot of times, by the time that things get to my plate as a fractional HR person, it's a reactive situation. I try my best seeing down the line. Hey, we need to do this. If we implement this in a consistent process, then it will negate this. And so for me, I think one of the biggest things that we can equip new managers with is how to have those conversations to set expectations, but not come across pushy, right? Because interpersonal skills are a thing. How to reset if we get if we get off course. If someone is needing to have a difficult conversation, it doesn't mean that it's the end of the world, but how do you have that
Yeah,
and still maintain decorum and still maintain that professional relationship? And understand that it is because you want your employee to be successful, right?
yeah.
When we think of, and I always start with managers saying, who was the best manager you ever had? How did they make you feel? Because if you can tap into that feeling and why they felt that, then you're like, well, how do we get your employees to feel that same way?
I
If
love that.
right. And they go, oh, that makes sense. So yeah.
I love that. And having that real life example to think about how someone maybe treated them or managed them is great. A couple of things I want to double down on what you
Right.
said. There are different communication styles
Yes, there are.
and there's different leadership styles. I'm a huge fan of teams doing, DISC, 16 personalities or Myers-Briggs. Elevated communicator is one that we
Yes.
love here at Perfecta. When anyone joins the team, I used to have them all take a couple of assessments. And I would go back and say, why are they more reserved here in this situation? Oh, okay, I understand now. And so the deeper we could understand what different leadership looks like, and not to say one leader should communicate this way or act this way, the
Yes.
better. It also makes it more inclusive, right?
And you can help understand across the team dynamic. So say you have a team of 5, right? And then so I've done everything from those to the Clifton strengths to the, it depends on how
Yeah.
many different you're looking. If you're going to do something like Clifton strengths, it's got a lot. So maybe pick your top 10, right? Don't have to go through all of them. But I think when you look not only to your manager, but even maybe a skip level, right? So maybe your manager, and your manager's manager, depending on your frequency of communication. But then also look within your team, because if they're going to be working a lot with Joe to their right, and Joe is a completely different personality than them, they need to kind of understand Joe a little bit,
Right,
right? So that it
exactly.
doesn't create a dynamic that they don't tell themselves a story about Joe without understanding Joe first. So I
Yeah,
definitely agree with that, Letitia.
exactly. For sure. Okay, Angela, next question is for you. If you want to add anything to that last question, please feel free to. But why is HR in a great position to identify and close these skill gaps before they turn into engagement and retention problems?
Because HR sees the whole board. Right? HR sees the whole organization. We see the exit interviews, we see the engagement survey scores broken down by team, by manager. We see who's requesting a transfer, and they're too polite to say the real reason. We know what's going on. We have information nobody else in the org has access to. And we have to start treating this information like it's your car check engine light coming up, right? It's a warning. Are we acting on it? So here's the part that I think that HR leaders need to sit with. Having the data isn't the same as acting on the data, right? We can see the gap, but our job isn't just to notice the gap. We have to have the courage to name it out loud before it costs us to lose someone that we can't afford to lose. And I think that gets back to that retention piece. It gets back to how are we having our comfortability having those hard conversations that Alicia was referring to? What does that look like? But we have to use that data that we have access to add value to the organization by talking about things that can drive the business forward.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I want to ask a question for you all, and we'll drop it in the chat as well. What do you all see are the biggest gaps in your managers right now? We talked about having hard conversations. I would even say repair after conflict in the same way we do in our partnerships and relationships. You might have a tough conversation and then you come back and, there's still repair that has to be done, right? Oftentimes conversations aren't one and done. Um, but what else would you all add to some of those skill gaps? And while y'all are putting those responses in the chat here, and I will drop the question in the chat. Erica, a strong L&D plan is key to upskilling managers, but how does HR make the business case to senior leaders so it's treated as a priority? How can they communicate the ROI?
Yeah, it goes back to what Angela was saying. When you have that data and the ES score is showing you there are issues with managers, when you get those exit interviews and a common reason for leaving is manager, you've got a problem. Like, no one wants to spend all that money on training more people. Now, some might be non-regrettable. We're kind of glad you left. But for the most part, you're like, I really didn't want to see them go. I've got to start back over again. And because to me, I really do believe managers are the glue. They know so much, right? They're in the middle. They've got people reporting to them. They're reporting up. They're getting information both ways. They are sandwiched there. So if we don't take the time to develop them and to help them make their team stronger, then we've just missed the mark all over. Like, they really, really hold together. They know so much information. And if we don't take the time to know what they know and to listen and to help them, we're just in trouble. And so to me, I want our managers to be strong. We've actually made it one of our OKRs to see that the manager issues go down as a reason in the EES score.
That's a good
And
point, Erica. One of
yeah.
our WIGs, wildly important goals for the organization, is manager capability, because this conversation is so important that we don't focus on it enough, right? We talked about how people assume because you're a great contributor that you can lead teams. And you're right. So we have made that a focus in this organization for this year and next year, because we have to start equipping and enabling our managers to be successful. So I totally agree with you.
And I will say that I'm seeing it across the board. So although I'm no longer working in one company. I did that, loved it, and well, never do it again. I love it. I'm not going back, but I loved it. But I do see that. So I now see patterns across clients, right? And so I'm able, because HR is industry agnostic. Yes, there are some changes that happen depending on where you go. There may be certain securities and things like that that you need to take care of, but these things it's not remote or not specific to a certain industry. And so the biggest thing that I like to tell people is like, you may not have the problem right now, but if you don't think about it right now, it will be knocking at your door. And so when you're talking about promotion or even organizational planning, so you may not even have the positions right now, but it is something that you should be thinking even as you build out your strategic plan and what positions you'll have in the future and what that looks like, right? So it's not just about your current managers, but even a manager that you're going to get tomorrow or a year from now or 5 years from now. Like, it needs to continue to be part of the conversation, just like you would have for employee onboarding, right? Like, to me, there should be a manager onboarding, but I'll get off my soapbox because Letitia, I can stay there the whole day. But it's just one of those things that it is something that I see across different clients, and I'm having that conversation as they start to, strategic planning and things like that. As we look at infrastructure, I'm saying this is a part that you have to pay attention to. Otherwise, it's going to be, I do like all of your acronyms for your goals. That was really cool. I was like, wigs. Anyway, but
Alicia, can I ask you a follow-up question? I want to also ask the panelists.
Yeah.
Right, the people here in the Zoom room, we know why it's needed, but how do we get leaders to know that if they just see, oh, a big dollar sign, right? Like how do we convince them that it's necessary?
So I tie it personally to data. It goes back to what Angela said. I tie it to turnover risk. I tie it to, because a bad manager they're oftentimes like the person that's really giving you the blues, the person that we're not so sad to see leave. They're usually the last to leave. They've driven out your top performer. They've driven out your people that have been there. And so when you look at industry knowledge, when you look at cost to replace that hire, when you look at just everything that you're expending for that as a result of, it's like, it's this or that. Which one do you prefer to spend? And I'm not even going to mention the risk of something that could happen that could cause you legality issues. Like, we're not even going to put that on the table. We're just talking about the actual dollars that you spend when people leave the organization. And so that's typically where I start, especially when I'm talking with C-suite, because that's the easiest part to get them locked in is, oh, that's going to cost me money. Okay, hold on, let me pay attention, right? And then this also affects your people. Now that I have your attention, this also affects your people. So they're usually there.
I totally
I love
agree
that.
with Alicia. Totally agree with Alicia, right? I can anecdotally tell you that this was an issue. You're not going to listen to me anecdotally, but you're going to listen when I have data, right? And so many organizations have data-informed learning or whatever as a value. What does that really mean? It means that we have to be business people first and bring the numbers, right? And so for me, one of the things that I could show was that with the engagement survey, I know that people don't have role clarity. People don't know what they're supposed to do. And that includes our managers, right? So everyone's confused about what they are supposed to do. And I knew manager effectiveness was an issue based on the data. So I can say, here are the numbers and what they correlate to. This is why this has to be a focus. And this is what it means for the business, like Alicia said, right? It's not a people team goal. This is a business goal. So if you want continuity in how we are serving our customers, then you have to make this important. And let me show you how I can support you in that. That's the conversation. that we have to
Yes.
start having.
I feel like we kind of had the wild, wild west for a little while because no one was really making anything happen. And I remember I got to the organization. I'm like, what is going on here? Like, we are adults. There needs to be some accountability. The thing with the data is you have people, maybe some leaders who are only about the numbers, and they
Right.
can easily put the numbers away. And so it's about making, how do you complete that whole story for them? The quantitative plus the qualitative. And then one of the things I've said often is one person's perception is their reality. So we
Mm-hmm.
can't just push away, well, only one person said that. That was one person who felt brave enough to say it or to put it
Yes.
on the survey, right? So we don't know how many other people could be feeling the same way. But are
Yeah.
we okay that that is one person's perception? We probably shouldn't
Mm-hmm.
be, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have to paint that whole story. And I think as HR, we have to keep pushing in the ways that we can with the senior leadership teams to say, like, this keeps coming up. And then sometimes we have to make those suggestions. Here's what I suggest. You give a bunch and then they might
Mm-hmm.
pick one, right? But like,
Yes.
maybe I need to help you and give the options there too, rather than rely on you to come up with what next step should be.
Yes, yes. I'm so like this is just making my brain so happy because I'm like, we have a whole conversation on storytelling and balancing the quant with the qualitative data and translating that to it. And this is where I think HR has a very one of the most challenging positions at a company. HR, talent, L&D culture, it's you are having to communicate to leadership and then you're also communicating to the managers and you're probably communicating to new hires and recruits, right? And so there's so many different audiences that are going to be drawn to different parts of that story. But I do want to go back to a question, and I'll actually ask you, Angela. During periods of fast growth, when everything feels urgent, what should HR prioritize to build a leadership pipeline that keeps pace? And if I can add a little twist to that, I think earlier we talked about what if there is not upward mobility, or maybe there's not a strong leadership pipeline today. What can we be doing?
I love this question, and I am living this question. So honestly, we know that when there is fast growth, leadership development typically gets cut first, right? Everything else is urgent.
Yes.
We default to the loudest thing, right? Fill the wreck, onboard the new hire, put out today's fire, and no one is thinking about leadership development, right? And we just grow without making that a priority. We're waiting for someday.
Mm-hmm.
So I think number one, we have to stop waiting until someone gets promoted to start developing them, right? We need to identify.
Ooh, can you say that again? Oh my gosh, I gotta go on mute because
I was like, that was it right there.
Stop, right?
That
We
was the
have to
line.
stop, right? Because we we have to stop waiting until someone gets promoted to start developing them. So we need to start identifying future managers before the seat opens, right? Because they're in effect able to hold the organization hostage sometimes because we don't have anyone else to fill the seat. So we need to start looking at what that looks like and start building that out and making sure that our people leaders know the basics. It's not a 6 month program, right? That feels disconnected to what's going on. Let's start with the non negotiable basics, right? How to give feedback, right? And not just how to give feedback, how to receive feedback. Because when I'm training people, I say it is proven that people Google how to give feedback X times more than they Google how to receive feedback. So they need to be trained in both, right? They have to know how to run one on one conversations. That isn't just give me a status update on this and here's a checklist, right? We've talked about it. They have to know how to have the hard conversations. They have to know how to repair relationships. First, just identify the basics. And one of the things that I've noticed in smaller organizations is you're right. We can't be an organization of all VPs, right? So we have to figure out what does horizontal growth look like? And you can also create career paths that go horizontally, right? You can have a manager one, a manager two, a manager three. You're also increasing their salary as they go across, right? The level, but give them some development to get there. And then you start developing for if an opening does come, what are those skills and capabilities they need to grow into those openings above them? But in the meantime, are you growing them horizontally? How are you giving them gig assignments to work on projects outside of your team? Right? We have to start thinking about everyone can't be a VP in the organization, but this is how we can also develop you. And more importantly, we've got to be okay with developing people to leave the organization. Sometimes your next position is not with the organization you're in. And you know what? That's okay. I'm going to be excited for you. I'm going to congratulate you. And I'm going to wish you success because we built this alumni that's really, really exciting. It's going to say great things about our organization so that hopefully we can attract talent because we've proven that this is what we do for people.
Thank you for that. And Erica, Alicia, if there's anything y'all want to add to what Angela said, feel free to. No, yep, mic drop, mic drop.
It was just, that was a big mic drop. I agree with everything said.
Yes,
Like
yes.
it's that name it and claim it part I think people don't want to do that Angela hit on at the end. Sometimes you have to admit we don't have a space for you, but man, have I helped you grow. And that's a hard thing to realize when it's someone you love, appreciate, respect, but you got to be okay with them leaving. And I think sometimes like the horizontal, you can't go but horizontal so many times, right?
Yes.
How can I help you so that when you get that next role and they say, where did you learn this? You can say, oh, I did it at such and such place. They taught me this, right? And that reputation can then become an ROI for your org because you're getting some top talent coming back in.
And it's also the understanding that not everybody wants to be a VP. Some people want to continue to be challenged and grow, so that like lateral manager is their sweet spot. They don't necessarily want to be the VP, right? But they're the person that's been there for a long time, has all the knowledge, loves to train the new folks that come on. Like, they're like you're consistent, right? And so give them the gigs to stay excited. But it's also, and I tell people, so what if they leave? If they refer you 5 great people, it's a win, right? If they had such an amazing time because you were that manager and they referred 5 people to come work, and now you guys, and it keeps happening, so you guys become an employer of choice. That's not a bad thing, right? Like, so we just have to we have to shift our mindset to the positive side of it. Yes, someone might leave, but if they're leaving for a better opportunity because there wasn't one here, it's not like they had a choice here and they chose to leave because they just wanted to get out. It wasn't negative. They left because there wasn't an opportunity here. And you've given them so much growth and so much development that they want to keep doing that. That's a positive thing. So let them continue that positive journey. It's okay. Like, it's just hard to let go sometimes because we're like, no, we started that. We did it. They're our person. And I'm like, we get it. But like, if you clip their wings, they're going to become resentful. And then you have a whole separate problem. So, but yes, well said, Angela and Erica.
Absolutely. Now, let's say that we talked about the business case. We talked about a little bit of the data, right? We presented this, manager or executive say, all right, go ahead. Let's do it. How do you get started? How do you determine if you want to build it in-house? You bring in someone externally. How do you think about competencies? Is it quarterly? Is it a pilot? We could go on, right? There's so many ways to design this, but like, how do you build it operationally? It's just can start maybe with Erica, like what you did at your company, and we'll just go around to the rest of you all. Would love to hear what you all have done or what you all have tried.
Yeah, so I'll give you a little backstory. I'm a former teacher, former educator, former school administrator. So I really believe like learning is key. When I first came to organization, we had these bi-monthly people manager meetings and they were always getting canceled. And I was like, what is happening? They're on the schedule and we're saying there's nothing to talk about? That can't be. But that wasn't my role. I was so confused. Fast forward, I was like, we already have this time on people's schedules. We need to be using it. And so right now I've been in the process of overhauling our L&D system. But what I'm doing for the second year is I'm doing a needs assessment. What are the managers saying that they need, where they want to grow? What are they seeing that they need to do more with the teams that they manage? The first year I did it, I also did the same assessment with senior leadership team. What would you like to see more from managers? And then I compared them. And they were pretty straight on. So what SLT wanted and what our manager said they wanted we're pretty much aligned. So right now it is August. I'm already planning out what's going to start in January. It's November, I'm going to do our needs assessment. I'm going to put that together. And then in January, I will continue. So we meet every other month. And now I've just been asked to make it every month. So in between, what's going to happen is we have our first true workshop. And then the month in between will be a chance for managers to just come together and talk, a group coaching discussion related to their prior topic. Because one of the things I've noticed that we do, and everyone does this in education, it's a problem, is we teach something and we walk away. How do we start building that in more places? And so a lot of that is you have to be very intentional. If you're not intentional about your L&D and why, it doesn't make sense. So we're in performance review right now. So in July, our session was about how to write your reviews. In 2 weeks, it is how do you actually have the review conversation? And it's timed well with what's going on the calendar. And so you really have to look at your org. I mean, a lot goes into it. When I say you have to be intentional, you have to be intentional and you have to block off the time to do it well.
I would agree. And I think that, Erica, we follow some of those same patterns in our organization. But before we even got there, I had to stop and ask the question, what does a leader look like here? Because I had to make sure that we were all aligned on what a leader should be doing at the organization. So I had to start there first. Because if I start saying, what do you want to get, which is what we did second, then they'd be like, yeah, why is that important? So I want to make sure we were all aligned on what a people leader at this organization looks like. So we were all aligned in that. And then we started listening to the people. Let's talk about what you need first. What are those 4 or 5 behaviors you need to demonstrate first? And then we started building on that. But you're right, we had to tie it to what was going on in the organization. So if we were talking about preparing for the new performance year, how do you align goals, right? So you're right, we had to start there. And then for a quarter, that's what we focused on. What does it look like? How are you following up? All of those great things, because we had to make it manageable. And it couldn't be like in education, you take the course, you pass the course, and then you forget about it because they were forgetting about it. And then they weren't adopting it. So for me, the philosophy was, it's not just about training, it's about behavior change. And what does that look like? So that's why I had to build it out and go slow to make sure that we're getting that behavior change. But we started with, what does a people leader look like? And then listening to what our people said that they needed first, needed most urgently to demonstrate. And then we built from there.
Yeah, I was at first going to say assessment, because it's going to depend on where your company is. Like if you're fast scaling and it's very chaotic, then that's going to look different than if you're more of like your traditional, you're you've been established and you want to establish a program. I agree with everything they've said. For me, that's how I would go about it. I am instilling those actually currently in a couple of my clients. That's on the very beginning pieces of it. So right now it's more I'm in the needs assessment. Like this is what I'm seeing, but let's not just talk about current state because you're scaling. So let's talk about what a leader looks like, not just today, but like, is that going to change in a year? Right. Like, because let's build to where we are. I don't want to build this and then we have to tear it down and do it again. So, but again, it's all about the through line. I think for us, it's more about just making sure that they can see that through line from beginning to end. Why is this important? What do I need to take from it? What do I need to give my people from it? Meaning the manager, what do they take from it? What do they need their employees or their team members to take from it? And if I need to go back to the resource, where can I find it? Right? That's the biggest piece. How do we teach them how to fish? I think a lot of times managers want to be able to do things themselves. We just don't necessarily give them like the knowledge libraries or the frameworks to look things up themselves. We kind of bury it, or you have to go to so-and-so to get it, or, and so it ties their hands a little bit. And so sometimes we can do that as well. So that would be my only piece, is making sure that everything they said, definitely correct. Just making sure that, and I'm sure that they are, that it's in writing or that there's some sort of like place that we can lead them back to, because people don't like asking for help. They just don't. 9 out of 10, they don't. If they can go find it themselves, they'd prefer it. So if you can point them back to it, but then on the other side of that, it allows you to create that boundary, right? And a process of saying, we have this written. Before you come here, please look here, right? So it's a two-way street.
And what I'm hearing from you all is that it is a cycle. It is an ongoing cycle, and you can iterate and you can improve, and you start with that assessment. You want to do another assessment once you wrap up, right? And always go back and find, how do we make sure this behavior sticks? How do we reinforce it? We have 10 minutes left, so we're gonna do a fireside round. We're gonna give y'all just one thing, one sentence in 10 seconds for each panelist. What's one action HR should take in the next 30 to 60 days to invest in leadership development and people skills? Just one action. You can take longer than 10 seconds if you need to.
Okay, I'll go.
Okay.
I think we get so busy, we forget to sit back and reflect. So I'm going to say, take the time, sit back and reflect to figure out what really needs to be happening next and prioritize it.
That's funny, because that's where I was leaning. I was like, I was like, I don't really have, my actions are planning things out right now. Like everything is like strategic work right now. So yeah, I would just make sure your strategy is key. Make sure your strategy and your plans, they're going to get messed up, but make sure they're as hard as they can be, that you've planned out as much as you can. So therefore, when it does get messed up, you can pivot easily.
Thanks,
I would
Alicia.
only add, continue to get buy-in, right? Have your stakeholders aligned with you so they can advocate on your behalf when those fast growth moments come or everything changes, right? Have them with you so that you're not going on this journey. So it's not an HR program, it's a company program. So they're
Yes.
also talking about why this is important, right? What this means for the organization. Get them to come with you on the journey, make them advocates of why this is important. So I would like, you have to do that and make them, make them cheerleaders of why this is important to the organization.
Thank you. All right, we're going to open it up to you all now for questions. I do have a couple of questions in here, and we'll keep it with you, Angela. So Chastity asked, can you elaborate more on transferable skills?
I think this was something that Alicia had talked about, how HR skills, competencies, capabilities are not industry agnostic, right? What we do can go to any industry. And sometimes we have to talk about that and say the hard thing aloud, that just because I don't know, I haven't worked in this industry, I can still take care of people and build people strategies. But we got to make sure we're saying that, because sometimes that becomes a blocker for us and expanding our own career growth and paths, right? To go to other industries. So we got to be able to talk about this and saying, I know people strategy, I know HR, regardless of the industry. So I think
Yes,
that's what that was about.
thank you. And then Regina has asked, what strategies have you seen HR teams use to protect time and capacity for L&D, especially when operational demands and competing priorities consistently take precedence? And that's a really, really great question, and one that I get and have conversations about when I'm meeting with HR leaders all of the time. It is important to us. We understand the value of it, but there are those other priorities that come up. Erica, do you want to expand a little bit on what you shared in your response?
Yeah, I think I kind of looked at this maybe a different way. Personally, it's me pushing back on and just being honest. Like, you're asking me to do these things. Usually, like I did talk with my boss and say, usually in an organization, one person is in charge in L&D and that's all they do. That
Mm-hmm.
is now an additional thing for me. So I need you to understand what I have the capability for. And we're a nonprofit, so I get it. So, but at the same time, I have to take care of me, or I can't take care of anybody else. As far
Mm-hmm.
as the rest of with the priorities, I feel like, unfortunately, sometimes, what is that quote? Rock bottom is where I chose to start my foundation. And I think, like, man, I've had to talk even with the SLT members, like, because you didn't do this, you cost hours here and literally thousands of dollars here because you didn't come to us first. And so I
Yes.
think if we look at it, like, if you take the hour to do this workshop
Mm-hmm.
once a month, all the time it saves you later because you are now speaking to your team better, issues aren't arising. This 1 hour benefits you and actually gives you time back. And so it's really hard for people to wrap their head around that. But if you keep at it and a lot of persistence, they'll start to see the outcome.
And thank you for bringing that up too, because I know someone earlier in the chat talked about sometimes the manager resistance that can happen as well.
Yeah.
And may I
I
just add? Oh, go ahead, Angela.
No, I was going to say, for me, I told the CEO and I have some really hard conversations, and he was asking for a report on who had completed training, and I said, I don't manage those people. That's not my issue. So that's why having buy-in and having those stakeholders go with you on this journey, because I can't tell your people what they need to do. I can tell you how they can access the system to do it. I can tell you why it's important, but if they're not advocating for that, that's not my issue, right? I am
Hmm.
giving you the tools you need to be successful. Now you got to figure out and hold your other C-suite members accountable for following up and making sure their team does it. That's not me. I'm not the police. I'm not
Yes.
policing. I want people to be successful here, but I'm not having a conversation to make your people do what they're supposed to do. They report up through you. You got to figure out how to have that conversation. This is how I can support you in that. So that's how I think about it. But if it's not important to them, then why is it important to me? And they have to figure out if this is important to them, or than not. Other than that, I'm wasting my time developing
Yeah.
programs. So that's
Yeah.
why that buy-in is so critically important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And may I just add, work with Perfecta. Hello. We know that you all are strapped for time, and there's so many other things that you all are doing. That's why we do love partnering with you all to provide really strong manager training programs, leadership development programs as well. Just co-building that with you to take some of that lift off of your plate. And so being able to communicate your priorities, and if you focus on this, these other priorities are going to get dropped. It is still important, but hey, this is what the investment could look like, and this is the business case. Reach out to me, email me, message me on LinkedIn. We can put a business case together. I want to see you all win, and I want to give you all some peace of mind when it comes to being able to create really, really great L&D programs. Um, we have 2 minutes left, so I want to go ahead and close this out. Gabby, if you could share the final slides with our audience here. And while we're getting that pulled up, please drop your LinkedIn profiles in here. Let's connect with each other as well. I am so excited to share with you all a big, big, big thing we have been working on at Perfecta. Alicia's played a huge part in this as well. We've been working on this for months, y'all. We have created a people ops maturity model. It is a 4-stage or 4-level maturity model or framework that helps HR teams and just leadership understand where you all are in terms of that current state versus an ideal state. There are a few different dimensions, categories that can help you to measure it. Of course, L&D is a part of it. And we're also hoping that you all can use that to then build that business case to get your HR infrastructure programming to a place where you can breathe a little bit. So download it, check it out. We dropped it in the chat here, and email me or message me and let me know what you think about it, how it resonated, if you have any questions. And I'm also would love, love, love to have calls with you all. We can set up a quick Zoom or Google Meet just to talk more about it. As we wrap up here, not only do we provide the L&D programs, we also provide fractional HR services. We have an HR diagnostic that will give you all a score on that maturity framework that I just shared with you all. But we are at time. So thank you all so much for being here. Thank you to our panelists. Connect with them on LinkedIn as well. Alicia, Angela, Erica, you all are amazing. I would love for this to be a 2-hour, 3-hour conversation, but I know you all have lots of other things to do. Thank you for your time. It has been a pleasure speaking with you all.